Hello, it's your Commodore, Ty Coles, and I'm going to be doing a review on the original series Star Trek. Recently, we lost Morgon Woodward, and he played a couple of characters in the original Star Trek, so to honor him, I'm going to do his 2 episodes that he appeared in. The first episode was in Season 1, Episode 10, Dagger of the Mind. This episode takes place on Stardate 2715.1. We start off. They are beaming down supplies to the Tantalus penal colony at Tantalus 5. The transport chief makes a rookie mistake and he tries to beam the stuff down while the security fields are still up.
I just don't understand the problem, sir.
You're beaming cargo down to a penal colony, Mr. Berkeley.
The security force field, sir.
USS Enterprise, Tantalus colony.
Rehab colony, come in.
Request opening in your force field for beaming down of cargo.
And they find out that they have one box to bring up some research equipment or something. We find out that there's someone in the box. He attacks the other transporter technician and steals his uniform. And we have some great use of music at this time. We have Kirk and McCoy. They're talking about the penal colony, and McCoy's not too thrilled with them. Kirk is trying to say how great they become, and they're more like resorts for the criminally insane.
Have you ever been to a penal colony since they started following his theories?
Cage is a cage, Jim.
You're behind the times, Bones. They're more like resort colonies now.
Then, as they're debating this, we have an urgent message from Tantalus saying that a prisoner escaped and there might be someone on board. Security is notified and closes off that deck and section of the ship, but we find that the prisoner is able to easily overtake the security and steal a phaser from them. And then we get to see him. He's on the bridge, even despite the security alert and all the security personnel looking for him.
Where's the captain? Which one of you is the captain?
I'm Captain Kirk.
How easy is it for someone to capture the bridge? It's like, are you kidding me? This is like ridiculous. Like, are they making the ship so pathetically secure that any person can walk up and take over the bridge with just a hand phaser? Okay, so we learn that the prisoner is called Van Gelder. He wants to stay on the ship, requests asylum, and doesn't want to go back to the colony. He's threatening the captain with the phaser and threatening to destroy the control panel if he doesn't agree to his demands. Spock nerve pinches him, and he's taken to sick bay. It took 3 times the amount of sedative to put him down.
After getting him here, it took almost a triple dose of sedative to put him under.
Than a normal person, but there was no signs of mental disease taking. So he just was talking nonsense, and something's going on in his brain, but they don't know what it is.
I belong back there, don't you? Dead or alive? Well, I won't let you take me back. I'm not going. I'll die first. You're here. I'm not going. No.
They finally figure out the identity of the man. It's Dr. Simon Van Gelder, and he was the director of the Tantalus colony, and he was assigned there. We then also hear this first mention of this experimental beam that was caused this whole shenanigan to happen to Simon Van Gelder. Dr. McCoy still doesn't believe Dr. Adams, and there is more of an argument between Kirk and McCoy.
I don't believe him. I can't explain it, but the more I study that
You
patient...
don't believe him and you can't explain it. Aren't you aware that in the last 20 years, Dr. Adams has done more to revolutionize, to humanize?
So McCoy raises concerns in his log, which requires Kirk to start an investigation and answer him in his own log.
I'm required to enter any reasonable doubts into my medical law. That requires you to answer in your law.
And when he does that, Kirk contacts Tantalus. First, Adams asks if there was any place better, and they all thought that was strange because Tantalus is the best penal colony in the Federation. And that they need a minimum away team, so Kirk asks McCoy if he has someone that's has experience in psychiatrical experience. Van Gelder is to remain on board while they're doing this, and McCoy does have someone that has experience in this field, and that's Dr. Noel. We go to the transporter room where we meet Dr. Helen Noel. Kirk and her have met before, so there's a familiarity between the two, but Kirk seems very uncomfortable around her. So it makes you believe that there's something that went on with them that Kirk doesn't want the rest of his staff to find out.
Don't you remember? The science lab Christmas party?
Yes, I remember.
So they beam down. They take a ridiculously fast elevator down there to meet Dr. Adams. But then it feels like Kirk forgot about the security screens himself because he tries to contact the ship. But Dr. Adams reminds him that because the screens are up, he can't communicate with it, so he lowers it and they talk to the ship. We have one of the women assistants that came in.
I love my work.
Go right ahead, Captain. Before you came here,
I was another person. Malignant, hateful.
But I feel like this is the modern day example. This was the platform of how they write women today. Bland, straight face, no emotion, wooden. Just Michael Burnham and Captain Marvel. So Dr. Adams starts taking him around the penal colony where they find the beam that caused the damage. Dr. Adams calls it a failure, but Kirk wants to know more about it. Dr. Ellen Noel opposes, but Kirk overrules her. We finally learn the name of this experimental beam is called the neural neutralizer.
I see it.
Captain, if something hasn't worked out and therefore has no scientific
Shall we leave it up to the doctor?
Since you brought me down here for advice, Captain,
One of the advantages of being a captain, Doctor, is being able to ask for advice without necessarily having to take it.
Back up on the ship, they're still trying to figure out what's happening to Van Gelder. He's still talking nonsense, but he's giving some... It seems like he's getting more and more sense back, and he's getting more mental control back. Kirk and Noel are still trying to defend Adams, but they still, like McCoy and Spock, still have their doubts, so they have to stay down there.
According to Adams, Van Gelder created his own problem.
He's suffering from neural synapse damage, as if his brain were short-circuited. It's no wonder he's having delusions.
McCoy here, received and understood. But we still have some doubts up here, Captain.
And this is also another groundbreaking episode because this is the first appearance of the Vulcan mind meld, which is they use to help Van Gelder so he can warn him about Adams. As soon as they get the information from Van Gelder, you see Spock frantically trying to beam him up, despite that the security shields are up. Down in the colony, Kirk starts to have his doubts, but Dr. Noel still seems to be wanting to defend Adams. But Kirk asks her for help, and they run a little experiment on the neural neutralizer.
Anytime you're ready, Doctor, just for a second or two.
we already tried it for that long, Captain.
Nothing happened.
Something happened.
Which we find out from Van Gelder that it can shape memories. and Adams uses it to bend people to his will. So they're running, Kirk and Noel are learning their own experiments, and they're finding it out that it's working a lot more better than what they were made to believe. Just as they're wrapping up their experiment, Dr. Adams comes in, takes over, and he starts to torture Kirk by telling him he's madly in love with Noel, and that if he doesn't have her, he'll suffer worse and worse pain. We go back into the, after all this happens, we're in Kirk's courtroom for the night. Noel tries to snap him out of it, and she manages to do so.
Helen, for years I've loved you.
Try to remember.
Loved you.
He placed all that in your mind.
For years.
Remember, Dr. Adams took the controls away from me.
Kirk and her then try to plan their escape, so she climbs into the vent to try to knock out the power, while Kirk goes for another treatment. They find out that the doctor's Noel's missing, so they go to send out the security to find her. Again, another example of how inept the security is in this episode. So she makes it to the main control room and she shuts off the power. This signals to them where she is, so they send the security after her. She is quickly overpowered by the males, and they bring back the power. But using her smarts, she manages to defeat the males after all. And save Kirk. And this allows Spock and them to beam down to get them out. She comes out, and Kirk's in his room. Spock interrupts them. And,
Dr. Adams. Dr. Adams. The treatment room. Follow me.
They find Dr. Adams after, this is when Kirk laid him out, in the room, and he's dead. That the beam drained all his memories out. And they're wondering how this happened. And Kirk uses his experience in front of that thing, saying, like, imagine being alone with that thing destroying your mind, not even a tormentor to keep you company.
He's dead, Captain.
The machine was not high enough to kill.
But he was alone. Can you imagine the mind emptied by that thing? Without even a tormentor for company.
They dismantle the room. That was the entire episode. I really enjoyed it, even though that the security were complete donkeys in this whole episode. Morgan Woodward played an amazing character in Simon Van Gelder. Much respect to him. We get to see the Vulcan mind meld for the first time ever. And we get to see a female that's almost on par with Kirk, with Dr. Helen Noel. She's smart, intelligent, and very attractive. That's why she was on my list for the top 10 hottest Star Trek women. And despite being overridden a couple of times by the men, she still continued to give her own opinion, and it didn't stop her. Just because the men told her to, just because the men interrupted her or stopped her, she continued to give her opinion, and she ended up helping save the day, saving Kirk from what could have been even more torture. And because of her actions, Spock was even able to come down and rescue them. So overall, an amazing episode from the original series. Not much more I can add to it. So this is your Commodore. Live long and prosper, people. Hailing frequencies closed. Thank you for watching the video from Commodore Ty. If you'd like to see more, please hit the like button, share, subscribe to the channel, and why not, when you're here, check out one of my other mini videos I've done. Live long and prosper. Hailing frequencies closed.